welcome to another episode of the Organizedpreneur Podcast LaunchPad. I'm super excited about this episode today. I just discovered that these few sound effects were here on the inside of the platform. And so maybe you already knew that, right? Maybe I am late to the party, right? But I am so excited. I jumped into my virtual studio and I just discovered that, that there were a few bells and whistles that I was not aware of. When I first launched my podcast, I used another platform back in 2013. I use Spreaker, and Spreaker it is a great platform, and it had all of the bells and whistles that I enjoyed using. So imagine my excitement when I discovered that now this platform also has it. So if you use um, Riverside as your platform of choice, I encourage you to go and check it out. But in the meantime, and in between time,
knowledge taking flight, getting organized, keep the hustle tight. All dreamers got the wisdom, breaking it down, clarity and chaos, wearing that crown.
welcome to the Organizedpreneur Podcast Launchpad. I'm super excited about this episode today because I am uh, going to be sharing. I lost my thought. I'm going to be continuing to break down more about the launch, host, and grow methodology that I shared with you in um, the previous episode. And so we're just going to kind of break it down so that you have a little bit more um, understanding around what the launch, host, and grow methodology is all about. And so, with that, let's just get started with the show, shall we? Okay, let's see. I'm just looking at a couple of different monitors here. So, wanted to make sure that I showed up on the screen, the way I should, right? So, again, I want to welcome you to the Organizedpreneur Podcast Launchpad, where we talk about all things podcasting as well as a methodology for you to get leads to your business or to your program or whatever endeavor that you're working on, and you want to get leads. Without leads, you do not have a business. And so that's what the launch, host, and grow methodology is all about. So let's just kind of dive in to the foundation. Okay. So I said that it's the launch, host, and grow methodology. And so the first part of that framework is launching. And so today we're going to be talking about launching with purpose. And so I don't mean just, launching a podcast. When I say launching a podcast, I mean the right podcast with the right strategy behind it, right? Because the deal is the podcasting space is growing at a rapid pace, right? There are millions of podcasts out there. Now, they're not millions. There are millions of podcasts, and I don't have the statistic in front of me. But there are millions of podcasts out there, but there are podcasts out there that don't last. As a matter of fact, like some of my clients, I've noticed that they've kind of dropped off, right? With continuing with the consistency, even though in our sessions, we talk about that. So the biggest one of the biggest challenges that I see with podcasters is that they start to drop off. And if you look into the space, as a matter of fact, you look into the podcasting space, the number of podcasts and people launching podcasts is very high. But the number of people that stay is not as high. As a matter of fact, when I launched my first podcast back in 2013, I have that podcast is out there still. It's Organize Your Enterprise podcast, and it only has 14 episodes because of some of the things that I'll be sharing, and I continue to share on these podcasts, right? And so the podcasting space is growing fast, but having a mic and uploading episodes is not what builds a brand. And it's certainly not the only thing that brings in leads. And so you may be asking, okay, well, what does? Because there are people out there saying, look, you can get leads by just building a podcast. No, you cannot get leads by just building a podcast. That's only part of it. So what does get leads is clarity, consistency, and connection. Okay, write that down. Clarity, consistency, and connection. And I know I'm not the only person, that's talking about that. But before you ever hit the record button, you got to ask yourself some questions. Some questions so that you are clear, right? That's the power of clarity before you launch. You want to ask yourself, who am I speaking to? Why does this show even exist? Why do I even want to launch a show? And what transformation am I helping my listeners to achieve? I didn't ask myself these questions when I launched my first podcast. Didn't ask myself. I knew I loved podcasting and I was excited about the podcast platforms and the bells and whistles like I just, shared with you. But once you get clear on your niche and your voice and your message, you will no longer feel like you're just talking into a void space, like nobody is listening. When you get clear, that's when you begin to build a platform that speaks directly to the people that you're called to serve. And here's the deal. Your ideal client is not just looking for more information. They can find information anywhere. All they have to do is go on the internet streets, right? Your ideal client is looking for someone who gets them, right? Someone who helps them believe something is greater and it's possible. Because it's not just a show, it's a gap filler, right? It's a bridge that fills the gap between awareness and transformation. So that's what happens when you get clear on your podcast and answer those questions about who you are here to serve. That's the power of clarity, right? So, what I do with my clients, I walk them through 3 powerful questions. Number 1, what do you want to be known for? At the end of the day, when somebody mentions your name, what are they going to say about you? She helped me do XYZ 1, 2, 3. And it's not just about topics, it's about thought leadership. They help me to really power through understanding this about myself, whatever that is. If you're a coach or consultant, right? And so that's one of the questions you have to ask yourself. What do you want to be known for? The second question you want to ask yourself is, what action do you want your listeners to take as a result of listening at your podcast? So what is the action you want them to take? Every episode is an opportunity to guide someone deeper into your world and help them have a transformation, right? But you want to guide them deeper into your world, into your lead magnet, into your email list, into your coaching program. What is the next step? What is the next level of commitment? What action do you want them to take? And then thirdly, you want to ask yourself, what systems do you have in place to support that? What systems do you have in place to support your show? What systems do you have in place to help your client reach the transformation that they're looking for? Because without a system, your podcast becomes a burden, right? It becomes a burden. If you don't have system, it becomes a burden and not a business tool. You want your podcast to be a business tool. Okay, what systems do you have in place to support your show? Ask yourself that. So first was clarity, right? And then the thing that, what do you do next after you have some clarity around your podcast? And those are the three questions. What do you want to be known for? What action do you want them, your listeners, to take? And what systems do you have in place to support them so that it is not a burden? Your podcast is not a burden, but a business tool to help them. I know I'm talking about systems a lot. It's because I love systems so much. But your podcast and your business and everything that you are doing to serve them has to also be very efficient and very effective as well. So you want to launch with purpose. So launching with purpose, which is the foundation of a strategic podcast. Okay. And so this is how you get clarity first, consistency second, and lastly, confidence, right? So launching with confidence. I didn't even say what the next one is. So if you've been thinking that, well, I don't have the tech skills, or I don't have time to figure this out, this is just another thing. Let me tell you something. You don't have time to do it alone either. And it doesn't have to be complicated. And you don't need 10 pieces of gear either, or 15 pieces of gear. As a matter of fact, a microphone and the platform is how you can get started. And a message that matters and a strategy to support it. So I hope this is making sense. So here are some action steps I want you to take. I want you to take a few minutes to answer those three questions and write them down. And if you don't remember what the three questions are, I will say this again. I will say them again. Who am I speaking to? What does the show, or why does the show exist? And what transformation am I helping my listeners to achieve? Okay. And so you got to answer those questions and say them out loud. And then ask, if my ideal client found my podcast, would they feel seen? Would they feel heard? And what would they know what to do next? That's why I'm sharing this whole methodology with you, the launch, host, and grow methodology with you, because I want you to have clarity. I want you to have confidence, right? And I want you to be consistent. Consistency actually breeds confidence. The more you do it, the more you have a strategy behind what you do, the more consistent you're going to be and the more confidence you're going to have. So if you want help building your podcast from the ground up, I want you to check out a link that I'll have in the show notes, where you can watch. It's an on-demand training that you can watch to help you in this whole process. So there will be a link in there as well. So, in the meantime and in between time, I want to thank you for actually listening and watching this episode today. And so, in the next episode, we're going to talk about how to host with purpose. So, we talked about launching with purpose. We're going to talk about how to host with purpose as well. Not just publish an episode, but create meaningful experiences that help grow your brand. So if you love this episode, I invite you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others. Share it with other businesses, business friend who maybe they're looking to launch their podcast and they really want to figure this thing out. And so until next time, I want you to stay organized. I want you to stay focused. And I want you to stay ready. Okay? Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. All right. Until next time, be blessed. Have a great day.
Every episode, knowledge taking flight. Getting organized, keep it hustle tight. All dreamers got the wisdom, breaking it down. Clarity and chaos, wearing that crown. Growth for your biz, success all around. In the podcast world, she's renowned.